Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, Prime Minister Netanyahu holding firm on demilitarizing Hamas and the Gaza Strip, while the IDF strikes Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. And members of the Christian media on the front lines of the information war. And Israeli leaders share their vision for the future of Judea and Samaria. Plus, one Tennessee family bringing volunteers and field help to Jewish farmers. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl. The bodies of 3 hostages were returned to their families a few days ago as Israel awaits more. IDF soldiers in Gaza continue to find themselves battling Hamas while Hezbollah tries to rebuild in Lebanon. And we have a report from the Christian Media Summit on the front lines of the information war. Here are these stories and more. Hamas returned the bodies of 3 hostages Sunday evening, including American-Israeli tank commander Captain Omer Nutra, Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel, a member of his tank crew, and Colonel Asaf Hamami, who served as a commander of the Southern Brigade Gaza Division.
We got Nutra, from New York and from the United States, and I spoke to his parents. They're thrilled in one sense, but in another sense, obviously, it's not too great. But we're very happy to have done it.
The return comes after Hamas delivered 3 bodies on Friday that turned out not to be hostages. 8 hostage bodies still remain in Gaza, including 1 American. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is working to eliminate pockets of Hamas terrorists in areas under Israeli control.
The entire issue of risk to our forces, my directive is unequivocal. If there is an attempt to harm our forces, we will strike those who attack and their organization to protect our forces. We are determined about it.
Netanyahu says that while Israel does report to its American friends, they don't ask permission.
Dismantling and demilitarizing Hamas, disarming Hamas, demilitarizing the Gaza Strip. This is the principle we adhere to. This is what we agreed upon between me and President Trump. And this is how we operate in a clear framework. And of course, if this is not done in one way, then it will be done in another way.
In an interview with CBS 60 Minutes, President Trump said the Gaza ceasefire is very solid.
I mean, you hear about Hamas, but Hamas could be taken out immediately if they don't behave. They know that. If they don't behave, they're going to be taken out immediately. If I want them to disarm, I'll get them to disarm very quickly. They'll be eliminated. They know that.
Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Israel continues to strike Hezbollah targets, killing 5 terrorists over the weekend. The U.S. Special Envoy for Syria, Tom Barak, describes Lebanon as a failed state, without a central bank, no electricity or education system. Nevertheless, he says, the leadership of Lebanon is good, and the way forward is to have good relations with Israel.
The Lebanese leadership today is solid. President Haroun, Nouaf, even Speaker Berry. They're trying, but they're dinosaurs. You have to go from the payphone to Starlink. And Starlink is, you go from Beirut to Tel Aviv. You have that conversation on the blue line, you have the conversation with Syria, and in 4 months you could end all of this.
Since the beginning of the October 7th war, Israel says one of the biggest battlefields is the information front. The 7th Christian Media Summit, hosted by the Israeli Government Press Office, is taking place for the first time since the October 7th war.
A summit where we hope you will understand the graveness of the events of the past 2 years and also come to understand the beauty of the people and incredible resilience that they have shown.
Pastor Trey Graham from Texas has been to Israel many times, but tells CBN News for first-timers there are lots of surprises.
Coming here to see things on the ground, again, for the first time for some, to be reinforced for others is the way to take back to whatever countries these journalists have come from to share what's really happening on the ground.
One important issue is biblical Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, where Palestinians want to have a state. The group visited Samaria to meet Governor Yossi Dagan.
If people come here and visit, especially Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland, they will understand the geography better, which helps you to understand military tactics and why giving up that high ground would be military suicide for this country.
First-time visitor Timothy Werasekera from Singapore said he better understands Israel's security needs.
One of the things that struck me being on the ground in Samaria is when you look across the armistice lines, you can see just how close the territories are. And to see that Tel Aviv is just an artillery shell away from where we were in Samaria made me think a lot about Israel's need to defend itself and the need to have a security buffer zone in that place.
Israeli Jonathan Feldstein, who lives in Judea, says it's been strangely quiet there during the war.
But we know that Hamas is there. We know that Hamas is crying. We know that our Arab neighbors don't love us. And all it will take is one little trigger for something else to start there.
Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, hit the headlines recently, creating international rumblings and controversy in Israel. A Jerusalem conference addressed the importance of this biblical land to Israel and the Jewish people. Here's our report. The conference on the future of Judea and Samaria comes at a time when a number of European and other countries said they would recognize a Palestinian state there, despite it being considered by many to be a price for Hamas's October 7th attack. The move triggered a recent vote in the Knesset that passed a first reading for Israel to apply Israeli sovereignty over the communities there, where 500,000 Israelis live. Yigal Dilmoni says Israel started on the mountains of Judea and Samaria, and it stands between the terrorists and Jerusalem's western wall.
There are no other option than Israel's sovereignty on Judea and Samaria. We can make it today or tomorrow or next month or next year, but it will be.
Troy Miller, president and CEO of National Religious Broadcasters, says NRB represents more than 1,500 media organizations and reaches hundreds of millions of people around the world. As such, they have a great responsibility to stand with Israel.
To tell you that the Christian community, by far, well over 85 to 90% of the Christian community, stand strong with Israel and support the sovereignty of Israel over Judea and Samaria, and we support that Israel is never to be divided and God's promises are never broken.
Ruthie Bloom, senior contributing editor and columnist for JNS News, told CBN News the future of Judea and Samaria has risen again in full force.
It's clear to most Israelis that this phony two-state solution, in other words, a Palestinian state alongside a Jewish state, is not happening. And that the Judea and Samaria is not only biblically Israel's, but also in terms of security.
Bloom, whose organization JNS co-sponsored the conference, noted that Israel won Judea and Samaria back during the 1967 Six-Day War, but didn't extend sovereignty and turned over the Temple Mount to the Islamic Waqf. More than 30 years ago, Israel signed the Oslo Accords that were supposed to create a Palestinian state and bring peace. 20 years ago, Israel handed over Gaza to the Palestinians.
No peace deal that has required us to forfeit the land of our forefathers has ever brought anything other than bloodshed.
Simcha Rotman says it's a great thing that President Trump honored the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when he recently spoke in the Knesset.
It's time that President Trump and everyone in the U.S. and in Israel will talk about the land that God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob promised to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. This is the time to speak about it.
State Representative Mindy McCallendon from Arkansas led legislation that passed into law saying the Arkansas state government must refer to the land as Judea and Samaria and not as the West Bank. She also brought a delegation of state legislators and American influencers to Israel.
To experience the land, to see the history, connecting with our faith into the land, and then also really spending some time in Judea and Samaria to understand why it's important that that land is referred to as Judea and Samaria and not the West Bank.
Recently, when Vice President Vance was in the country, Knesset members voted in favor of extending Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. Vance called it stupid and a political stunt.
And therefore, I want to send a message to Vice President J.D. Vance and tell him that applying sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, it's not a stupid political stunt. It's the future of the Jewish people. It's the only way to really achieve future of peace, stability, and prosperity in the region.
Syrian-born German political activist Rawan Osman told CBN News she knows it's a volatile topic.
I know that Israel will prevail. Let's seize the opportunity to deal with every controversial aspect of the so-called Israeli-Arab conflict. Let's deal with the elephant in the room once and for all. If any Jew has the right to live in Tel Aviv, they definitely have the right to live in this part of Israel.
Ditsa Or, mother of recently released hostage Avi Natan Or, is from Shiloh in Samaria. She said that God told the Jewish people their purpose is to be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation, and a light to the nations.
This is the historic moment to ascend to the next level, to move from a covenant of faith, of people bound together by a history of suffering, to a covenant of destiny, a dignified nation building a model society guided by the vision of our prophets.
Now we turn to an extended family living on Mount Gerizim, the mountain of blessing mentioned in the book of Exodus. They're helping to bring prophecy to life, one field at a time. Joshua Swanson brings us the story from Samaria.
With the release of 2,000 prisoners as part of the Gaza peace deal and the continued expansion of Arab villages, tensions are rising in the West Bank. Yet stories of restoration continue to emerge from this contested land.
And here in Samaria, a Christian family from Tennessee is building a lot more than just farms. They're building faith. We turn now to our ongoing coverage from the region some call the West Bank and reconnect with the Waller family, also known as the Israel Guys, here on Mount Gerizim, the mountain of blessing.
I came here the first time to Israel as a tag-along. Because I was farming, they said, we know a farmer, the guy that our host here, and he brought us out here to the Mount of Blessing to meet a vineyard owner. But here I'm meeting this Orthodox Jew in a vineyard, but he pulled out his Tanakh and he read to me from the prophet Jeremiah. You shall again be adorned with tambourines and shall go forth in the dances of those who rejoice. You shall yet plant vines on the mountains of Samaria. The planters shall plant and eat them as ordinary food. The majority of the prophets, when they're talking about the restoration of Israel, they always refer to the return of the Jewish people. The second thing is rebuilding the ruined places. And then the third thing is usually plant vineyards.
Founded by the Waller family, Hayavel has spent 20 years bringing thousands from around the world to serve the Jewish people. Known today as the Israel Guys, the Wallers have planted vineyards and built farms, pushing back Arab expansion. Now they're broadcasting to millions about the growing property battle unfolding in Israel's heartland.
And what we're looking at right here is there's a jihadist takeover happening on the land. And you can literally see that with these buildings and this road infrastructure that's coming in right here. They're connecting these Arab villages to each other. So we have Bahrain on one side, Iraq Marine on the other, and you can see that they're building this infrastructure in between. The goal is to encircle all of the Jewish communities. It's a written plan. The Fayyad plan is to land grab, take this land to encircle around the Jewish communities. In the event of war, they have no way out, really. Yeah. It's a military strategic initiative that they're doing.
A recent terror attack in Jerusalem has intensified tensions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is fighting terror on every front.
We are at war, an intense war against terrorism on several fronts, and unfortunately in Jerusalem as well. The ISA, IDF, and the Israeli police have thwarted hundreds of terror attacks this year, but unfortunately, not this morning.
In May, Israel approved 22 new communities in the West Bank, the largest settlement growth in decades. In August, the expansion of Ma'ale Adumim was approved, which would cut the West Bank in half. These moves drove international leaders to recognize a Palestinian state and pushed Donald Trump to join the conversation.
Did you promise leaders this week that you would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank? And is that something that you...
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
And here in Samaria, sovereignty isn't just about politics. It's about faith. And for the Wallers, their presence here is rooted in the Word of God, not global opinion.
We had a wonderful life. And so when God called us to Israel, it was like, wow, guys, we get to go to Israel. I think that Christian people may be offended at the Jewish people, like you're the goyim, we don't really have a place for you in our lives. That has shifted. That has majorly shifted. The rabbi here in Har Bracha have taught this community to love us and embrace us, and they do. They love us and they embrace us. And so my children, my family, they have flourished. We couldn't be more fulfilled and more blessed to be able to serve God in this way.
This is an Isaiah 60 moment where Christians and Jews are standing side by side, restoring the land.
Bible talks about seeing the prophetic word of God confirmed. We've been a part of that process. The Jewish people coming home, prophetic word confirmed. The ancient ruins of Israel, rebuilt, prophetic word of God confirmed. The agricultural cycles of Israel returning to the land, the physical land of Israel, prophecy confirmed. Nations, Gentiles coming to serve the Jewish people, the prophetic word of God confirmed. All of these things we're living and breathing and touching every day.
While U.S. officials and Arab nations continue to reject Israel's sovereignty over its biblical heartland, a quiet revolution is unfolding. It's not driven by politics, but by promise, as Christians come alongside Jewish pioneers to restore the land and fulfill ancient prophecy.
We support the Jewish communities. We're here just to stand alongside these farmers, these communities, to see them become sustainable. We're helping with whatever needs to be done and really aligning with the plan of God.
Reporting from the mountains of Samaria, I'm Joshua Swanson for CBN News.
Losing one's home to a Hezbollah missile is bad enough, much less a beloved family member. A young Arab-Israeli woman in northern Israel found herself in this terrible position. Thanks to our partners, CBN Israel brought support and helped her begin to rebuild her life. Take a look.
On November 18, 2024, a missile launched by Hezbollah slipped past Israel's defenses and struck the apartment building of a Muslim family in northern Israel, where Razan lived. Only her mother was home at the time.
It was a direct hit into the bomb shelter. It came through the ceiling and into the floor below that had a reinforced shelter room. My mom was inside that room.
Razan's mother, Safa, a 50-year-old school teacher with 4 children, was killed when the rocket tore through the walls of their safe room. A neighbor witnessed the tragedy and still remembers it vividly.
It was a huge explosion. No one really knew where it was. Suddenly, the whole neighborhood was buried in dust. And it was not just fragments, it was the rocket itself. It was a direct hit. So there is nothing you could do in such a situation.
As the family grieves and tries to rebuild from nothing, their old home remains frozen in time. Dishes in the sink, laundry still hanging on the line. Quiet and reminders of a normal life suddenly cut short.
You enter the kitchen and remember how your mom would make food. Cooking was something very important to her. She would cook with her whole heart. She would send food with each of us and even to our friends at school. I have so many memories of her in the kitchen, in this house, how present she was. And every time I go there, it is so hard. It's hard for me to understand that there is a life that ended, memories that will never be repeated.
Thanks to you, CBN Israel was able to provide vital financial support, covering the family's rent at a new home and helping Razan stay on track with her degree at Haifa University. CBN Israel also provided grief counseling to offer emotional strength and compassion in the wake of such a heartbreaking loss.
It gives me hope that we are still here, the family is still here, and we will continue being strong in a new house without her. Thank you for giving me a safe place to actually just sit and talk about what actually happened. I really appreciate that. Thank you, CBN Israel. Thank you.
That's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and you can access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. Be sure to sign up for our email blasts so you can continue to receive CBN content as well as news updates. And please, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and that all of the families of the slain hostages would receive their loved ones soon, and for all those caught in harm's way. And remember, the God who's watching over Israel and you and me neither slumbers nor sleeps. I'm Julie Stahl. For all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.